Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the last Post Falls City Council meeting of 2021. Shannon, please note that all council members are present with the exception of Mr. Anthony, who is excused tonight. We do have one announcement. Post Falls City Hall and city business offices will be closed Friday, December 24th and Friday, December 31st in observance of Christmas and New Year's. Police, fire, and rescue services for life-threatening or in-progress emergencies may be reached by calling 911. The police department will be open for walk-in emergencies. For water department emergencies, call 208-773-3517. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There are none tonight, sir.
Any declarations of conflict?
I'll recuse myself from number F and number L on the consent calendar, please.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So, Mayor, it might be helpful to pull those two items off of the consent calendar and vote on those
You
separately.
want a motion for that?
That would
So
be
moved.
perfect.
Second.
I got this down.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Hold on.
Doesn't know who we are.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Shelley, would you please present the consent calendar as amended?
Item A is minutes for the December 7th, 2021 City Council meeting. Item B is payables, November 30th through December 13th, 2021. Item C is State of Idaho Annual Street Report for fiscal year 2021. Item D is Pleasant View West and North Annexation and Development Agreements, Rights-of-Way and Easements. Item E is Build Right Homes Zone Change Reasoned Decision. Item G is Montrose 15th Edition Subdivision Plat Application. Item H is Wildflower Meadows Subdivision Updated Construction Improvement Agreement. Item I is Foxtail 6th Edition Subdivision Plat Application. Item J is Purchase of a new Vector truck with ON equipment for the Water Reclamation Division. Item K is Quiet Ridge Fair Property Annexation Agreement and Dedication of Rights-of-Way and Easement. And item M is North Mill 1 Subdivision Construction Improvement Agreement. Item N is Prairie Avenue and Spokane Street Phase 2 Avista Utility Agreement. Item O is Patriot Business Park Condominium Plat Application. Item P is Updated Wastewater Capacity Replacement Fee Agreement for 620 North Spokane Street. And item Q is Montrose 14th Edition Subdivision Plat Application. Item R is North Mill 1 Subdivision Master Development Agreement. Item S is Greens Ferry Glen Annexation Agreement, Right-of-Way and Easements. And item T, Memorandum of Understanding with the Post Falls Highway District for snow plowing efforts on roadways.
Any questions on the consent calendar? Carrie?
Just a note that on item K, it says Quite Ridge, and I'm sure that's Quiet Ridge.
It is, that's, I
Yes,
pronounced
okay.
it quiet even though it says quite, that's why I hesitated.
So if it's just on the agenda, then it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we take the next two items on the consent calendar.
The F. and-
Let's let Shelley present those, Joe. I'm sorry.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. Item F is the Post Falls Landing Smart Code Infill Neighborhood Plan Major Amendment 1 SCA-0001-2021. And item item L is Purchase Agreement for Riparian Rights.
I would move to approve items F and L.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We do have one item under public hearings tonight, and that is the Post Falls Baptist Church zone change. Anyone who wishes to speak, there's a form on the back. Fill it out, please. Turn it into our clerk, and we'll let you come up and talk to the council. With that, I will open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor Jacobson, Council President Wilhelm, and members of City Council. This is John Manley, Planning Manager at the City of Post Falls, introducing the staff report for the Post Falls Baptist Zone Change, file number RZNE 9/2021. So the applicant is Drew Dittman of Lake City Engineering, representing the owner, Post Falls Baptist Church, Inc. They're looking at a rezone of approximately 8.75 acres in the city of Post Falls from the limited commercial LC zoning district to the proposed high-density multifamily residential R3 zoning district. Here's the location, as you see here, at the northwest corner of East Poline Avenue and North Cecil Road here in the red hatch. You can see that in the vicinity you have the high school to the south, an elementary school just to the west, with various miscellaneous commercials to the east, a storage unit to the north, and just west, a single-family subdivision. Current land use on this is vacant. There's no significant topology or vegetation matters that encumbers a site. Ross Point Water District would be the water service provider, with the city providing sewer service. When you're looking at zone changes, you have 6 review criteria. This is the first 3. The next slides, I'll kind of go in addressing some of these items, the full details in the staff report where we go into the more of the goals and policy analysis. One thing to note, dealing with the traffic patterns and existing development and kind of street classification, is in the staff report it notes and identifies this project going on or being proposed for this spring summer, getting a roundabout or traffic signal here at the pole line of Cecil, Cecil and pole line. Any questions on this specifically? Rob Paulus, Assistant City Engineer, is here to answer any questions regarding this matter. Also on the site, there is a few pipelines in the vicinity. You see here the Phillips 66 liquid pipeline runs along the north side of pole line and kind of meanders on the north side through some neighborhoods and then back down to the north side of Pole Line Avenue. Going back to that roundabout project, in your staff report, you saw that there's a proposed development agreement. The owner of this, or the developer of this, would be willing to agree that they would hold off COs for any improvements of this property before the intersection improvement project is deemed substantially complete by the city. This is important because you've seen in some of the comments, the police department was concerned at the current environment out there, the way it is, servicing those additional rooftops in that area. You also saw in the staff report, which I'll go into it later on, you see where now that they know the timing of this, they're no longer concerned with the safety of that intersection with this project in conclusion of it. Hence the desire to get that CO conditioned upon the completion of that project. Going back into the other matters of the review criteria, the comp plan and some of the policies, you have here the hatched limited commercial area. You see that the adjacent zones being commercial to the north and east with single family to the west, and then the R1 where the school site's at. That is an allowed use within the R1, the schools. Looking at the future land use map, you see here it's business commercial. That's that pink area. It allows a multitude of uses. And then with the low density residential in the yellow. So looking at the business commercial, you see that there are some implementing zoning districts. Both are compatible. The limited commercial, you see that it currently is compatible, as well as the proposed R3. There's other items. It looks at the principal uses and category and character. It eludes that this category supports a mixture of housing types built at moderate density, at least 8 dwelling units per acre. Multi-story buildings and a mixture of uses are encouraged. So it does entertain some residential density and rooftops in that business commercial. What you'd be looking at is those other items in that staff report, talking with the goals and policies to see if that further supports their proposed ask. The comp plan also looks at the 41 North. It's broken up in focus areas. And so the 41 North focus area is one of the areas within the comprehensive plan that allows some further analysis. Just some items of note. It's forecasted that this area could have as many as 30,000 new residents in that area that's browned in the future. This area is expected to spur commercial uses adjacent to the highway. So as you get rooftops in the area of here, more than likely it'll assist the commercial development along Highway 41. Also, through development, that is a way that we get pedestrian connectivity throughout the city of Post Falls. Other review criteria, the last three, looking at commercial and high-density residential zoning, is typically assigned along streets with higher road classifications. That would be the case with both Poline and Cecil. The next review criteria, limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential, is typically assigned for properties as they proceed further away from higher intense urban activity nodes or areas. It was identified in the staff report that this area is fairly proximate to Highway 41, but it does proceed further away from that north-south corridor, and it is in that transitional area. The industrial zoning criteria really wouldn't be applicable for this ask. Other related information that's been inquired upon recently, looking at 2020, there was a total of 569 total units in 32 buildings that were CO'd in 2020. In 2021, there was 377 in 25 buildings that are awaiting their COs. Looking at 2021, this is the first request for a zone change to R3 in this year. We did have one special use permit this year for a multifamily R3 product within this last year. Here's the agencies that were routed, those that commented. The Highway District commented a couple times, they had none. Here's where you see in their staff report, PA2 and PA4, that concern initially by the Post Falls Police, and then you can see in the exhibit PA4 that they were relieved of their concerns. DEQ, they continue to just have construction-related comments, trying to keep clean air, clean construction, and clean environment type activity conditions. Any questions for me at this time?
Questions for John at this point? Al, go ahead.
John, do you have a breakdown of inventory within the city right now of available R3 and available LC?
Yeah, off the cuff, I don't have that available, the breakdown of available.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Applicant wish to speak?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering for the record, and I feel a little bit underdressed going after John, but you didn't turn your tie on for everybody. His tie lights up. It's quite annoying, actually. Representing Post Falls Baptist Church in their rezone request tonight, as John had indicated. Subject property is highlighted in red at the corner of Cecil and Poline, directly across the street from the high school, as you can see here. So John went through these. These are the zone change approval criteria right out of the municipal code. The last two obviously don't apply, as John had indicated. I'll go through these real briefly. The first one is amendments should be in accordance with the future land use map. The future land use map designates this property as business commercial, which is R3 is an implementing zoning district, which means it's an allowed zone in that business district. Item B is a zone change request, should be in conformance with the goals and policies in the comp plan. There's a full analysis in the staff report and in the narrative and in the submittals that we submitted that go through the comp plan. We obviously feel that it does meet those goals and policies of the comp plan. Item C is zoning is assigned following considerations of street classifications, traffic, development, land use, et cetera. And again, this is addressed in the staff report as this is in conformance with all of the existing master plans, the sewer master plan, the transportation master plan, did consider these kind of residential uses in those plans, so it does meet that. And then item D is commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with higher zoning classifications. And again, Cecil Road, as you can see here, is a major collector. Poline is a minor arterial. And as John had discussed, there are intersection improvements scheduled for that intersection. And we discussed this at length, actually, at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, because that was the issue at the P&Z meeting, was a timing thing. And P&Z really felt that those improvements needed to be done prior to this project being allowed to move forward. Rob Paulus testified that the improvements are scheduled to be done in 2022, and he can probably come up and elaborate more on that if needed. So after the P&Z meeting, we went to staff and said, we understand those concerns. How about we enter into a voluntary development agreement that would allow us, if the zone change were approved, to move forward with our planning and our construction such that we would not ask for a certificate of occupancy until those improvements were deemed complete by the city. We would also be willing to voluntarily agree to dedicate the necessary right-of-way for the roundabout and for those improvements to the city at no cost. And that is outlined in that development agreement, which I think you should have a signed copy of it in your packet. We're still seeing the need for multifamily. I know that's a hot button issue, but we're still looking at in North Idaho about 2 to 2.5% vacancy rate on apartments. So there still is a need for that. There's obviously a need for the workforce housing as well. This would be a component of that. I wouldn't be standing here tonight if there wasn't a need for it pitching this project. I think Hayden Enduro is representing the developer who's going to come up and talk, but I'll hang by for questions after he talks. Thank you.
Hayden Anderl, 2000 Northwest Boulevard. Good evening, members of City Council. I wanted to come up and speak on behalf of the development group. I approached the Post Falls Baptist Church about 8 or 9 months ago, and on a cold phone call, to see if they had any plans for this land. They had owned it for a long time. I was able to have a conversation with Pastor Seth Hohenstreet, who you'll get to hear from a little bit later. And I told him why I was calling. Essentially, you know, I grew up in Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, all this whole area. I moved back in 2016, and part of that was to work with my dad and work in the real estate industry, the same industry that his dad worked in and he learned from and worked for. And Mr. Wolf actually asked the question earlier, I believe it was, how much R3 land is available in Post Falls. And I can tell you that this is the first piece I have been able to get an opportunity on in the 5 years that I've been looking. So the last and the only multifamily project that my dad has done in Post Falls was approved in 2015. So that's out in Tullamore. This is it's something I'm really passionate about, wanting to learn this business. And to learn the business, you know, you need an opportunity. This isn't something you can take an online class for. You need true on-the-job training to kind of carry on that legacy. One of the reasons that I chose this property to pursue and try to make something happen here was that it met all the criteria for a zone change. When you look for land, you know, there's all kinds of land you could find and you could request zone changes, but some of them aren't, you know, there's not a good chance of it happening. When we looked at this in the future land use map and we spent time with Drew, this truly hit all those boxes. And so we spent the time and the money to move this project forward. We came to an agreement with Post Falls Baptist Church. They have a plan for the funds, which I'll let Mr. Hohenstreet speak on a little bit more. But as we went down this path a little bit, I received a lot of opposition, a lot of backlash from people online. And one of the things I think that bothers me about that is that those who are fully opposed to growth completely ignore the economic concept of supply and demand. The demand to live in this area is not going to stop. We can't make it stop. It's something intrinsic that people have. When the supply is cut off, pricing goes up, always. It's a tale as old as time. So if we move to an anti-growth sentiment, not a smart growth sentiment, which is I think what most everybody wants, you take an infill piece that checks the boxes, you have a willing seller who wants to do something great with that money in the community, you have a willing buyer who's willing to pay those fees and take a piece of bare land that's been bare for, I think, before the church has had it for 19 years. And for them, this truly is the highest and best use of that land. And that's kind of what you're always taught to pursue, for me, is the highest and best use. And for them, and in this case, for the land itself, we believe this zoning is the highest and best use. I believe just in the report from Mr. Manley, he said that there was a expected 30,000 new residents. I truly believe that if smart growth is not allowed, that we will see prices go up so much that it will really impact a lot of the people who live here who haven't been able to purchase a home, which is quite a bit. A lot of the people that are my age, my friend group, they're renting right now. They're saving up money, hoping for the housing market to be a little less expensive, or they're waiting to get that down payment, whatever it may be. It's a real thing. The need for rentals is real. We build few high-quality projects, and we keep them. We keep the projects, we maintain them, we create jobs, we have professional management, snow removal services, landscaping. I really believe this is the right thing to do, and I genuinely would appreciate your support.
Questions, Mr. Andrew? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, for the record. I want to touch on a couple of points that Hayden had discussed, and he used the term smart growth or responsible growth. This is truly an underutilized infill piece of property. The church has owned it for 20 years or so, and it's sat there. It's almost completely surrounded by residential uses, with the exception of the storage units to the north and the storage units across the street and the church on the corner. But as John had put up the zoning map earlier, you saw all the yellow around it. So it's almost entirely surrounded by residential uses. From an infrastructure standpoint, as I said earlier, it's been incorporated into the city's sewer master plan, the transportation master plan. Those trips have been accounted for from a residential standpoint. And it's the ideal location. It's right across from the high school. It's got great access to the parks in the Tullamore project. It's got great access to commercial that's going to develop along the Highway 41 corridor. So from that standpoint, we feel that it's a great fit. So, any questions for me?
Questions, Mr. Dittman? Al?
Mr. Wolf?
I'll ask you the same question I asked John. Do you know what the inventory is of available land that's already zoned R3?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I can tell you this, and you guys know me, I'm in front of you all the time. I have a lot of developer clients that are chasing R3 residential property. There's none available that I know of in the city of Post Falls.
Okay.
Excuse me, gentlemen, please. That microphone's pick it up, all right? So no comments, please. No, I know. Are you finished now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shannon, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Thank you. Wishing to speak and in favor, Seth Honestreet? I will apologize. I tend to butcher names, so I apologize if I did.
That's okay. Honorable Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I appreciate your time. I am here to speak in favor of this. My name is Seth Street. I am the pastor of Post Falls Baptist Church, located at 1608 North Spokane Street. I have a number of folks from the church that are with me here tonight. As Mr. Andrew already mentioned, that he had approached us really on a cold call. To him, it was a cold call. To us, it was very timely. We've recently been discussing in early 2001 options and projections for our church. Very brief history. My father was a pastor at Post Falls Baptist Church for 27 and a half years until his unexpected death in 2018. About a year and a half later, Post Falls Baptist Church had contacted me. I was pastor of Zion Baptist Church in Post Falls, and the churches had merged. We merged congregations. We did a significant remodel of the sanctuary space there on Spokane Street, and we've been serving together as a combined church now for the last almost 2 years. And things have gone very well for us, and we're looking at growing and increasing some things. The land was purchased when my dad was the pastor almost 20 years ago. The original intention was to relocate and to build a new facility. And with current building prices, what we could get for the property on Spokane Street, that's just not feasible right now. So to stick with some of the notes that I wrote down, I do speak in favor of this. Obviously, first of all, we're a direct benefit of it. But also, I think it makes good sense. As already been mentioned, it's good infill. When you look at the impacts between commercial and single-family residents, this really is a perfect transition zone, in my opinion. My understanding is it meets the requirements, has been shared. I appreciate Mr. Manley and all of his staff. Sometimes you don't realize the work that goes into these type of presentations, but some people do, they want unfettered growth. Just do what you want when you want. Some people don't want anything. When you look at what Mr. Andrew is looking at doing and what Post Falls Baptist will do, this really is well-planned, well-designed growth, and it's a local developer with vested interest. And so the benefits for our church, as I said, it's no longer feasible for us to develop the property. We don't have the cash reserves and what we could sell our current property for. We just could not reinvest that without significant debt to the church, which I'm not willing to do. The church did discuss selling that, and some people would call it circumstance. I call it God's arrangement that Mr. Andrew phoned us. We went into many conversations, and with your approval of this rezoning request, we'll be able to sell that property for the highest price possible and reinvest that back into our church. Our plans are to build a new sanctuary, classroom spaces, upgrade our kitchen and fellowship hall area, as well as the aesthetics. Right now, if you drive by the church, there's only sidewalks on one side. There's the parking lot needs to be paved. There's much that we could do. Not only will it benefit then our congregation, but it's going to increase our capacity and our ability to reach the people around us, which is what houses of worship, churches just like ours, really are supposed to be doing. And so that's going to increase our opportunity to do that. By this zoning change, we're going to see benefit to the city. The city will see the increased revenue from that now developed property on Pole Line. Without the zoning change, that property will sit unused, and we see no way to develop it ourselves. But as Mr. Andrew said, this is the highest use and best value for that property. So as the pastor of Post Falls Baptist Church, and with unanimous support of the full church family as well as the folks here tonight, we do ask that you would approve this, as it then is a key to open the door for us to sell the property and improve our facilities on Spokane Street and reach the city in a better way.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have no one speaking neutral. We have three wishing to speak in opposition. First would be Mike Policero. You want to skip? Mr. Flowers. I thought you were just trying to get my attention.
Bob Flowers. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Glad to see you all here. I wish Steve was here too. Anyway, I understand the church wanting to get the most bang for their buck. The representative that spoke for the church at the P&Z meeting expressed just that. That's why they're asking for R3 zoning. I don't believe it fits there. If you need some kind of buffer, then the most that this should be changed to is an R2. The new R2 zoning would fit in there. And then you'd have homes. You'd have, well, look all around it. There's homes. There's not big, ugly 3-story apartments, and especially not across from the school with all the extra traffic and everything that's associated with apartments. I would strongly suggest that if there is a change to this zoning, that it be made no more than R2. And that way they can still get quite a few homes into that 8 3/4 acres and get a return on their money, but you won't have 3-story ugly apartments sitting in their place. You'll have homes that families can call their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Burns?
You can sit over there to get my Fitbit steps in. Howard Burns, 502 Rocky Point Court. First, could I ask a question? Because it's my understanding that in the LC zone, R2 is allowed by right. Can I get an answer to that?
More? Bob?
I don't know that.
It's only allowed through a special use permit. So if you're in a limited commercial, you can go to the Planning and Zoning Commission and request to get uses as permitted in the medium density R2.
Okay.
Okay, so the applicant was here in front of the Planning Commission, whenever it was, and he had two applications in front of the Planning Commission. One is for 270 units down on Beck Road as a special use permit in a commercial zone, and he was approved on that and never came to you folks because it's a special use permit. And if you looked at the application that he gave for that and the application that he gave for this, they're almost identical. The 270 units sitting right on I-90 has some sense to it. This, to me, doesn't. You've gone past the buffer. Pole line should be, R3 should stay east of pole line. Keep it toward 41. If you make this piece of LC R3, then what's the commercial guy to the north? He's going to want apartments on his property. He was most upset about the Planning Commission, all the hassles he's gone through on his property from the city. He's going to be put out of business by people complaining about his self-storage unit. One of your planning commissioners was a strong proponent for this project, seemed to know more about it than the applicant, discussing the gas line on the property and how it was going to infringe upon the development and how LC would never work here. This was a property that wouldn't work, and yet that same commissioner voted to allow interior commercial up in the north, I believe it was called North Shore East or North Point East project, the 229 acres that had the commercial on the inside on Syringa. So either this works as LC or that shouldn't be LC. LC is a limited commercial. Go for a special use permit for R2. The church should support. Maybe they can even have affordable duplexes that somebody can own. We don't need more rental property. We need more for sale property, and that's what R2 should be. And R3 should be kept close to 41. If it has to be north of Prairie, so be it, but it should be along Prairie and Highway 41 or along I-90. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pelissero, you up for it?
Mike Pelissero for the record. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. Getting close here, aren't we? I have just seen this thing, and I've looked at it, driven by, kind of familiar with it. One, they always, every time they want to have high-density housing, we always talk about how we're going to meet a housing need and meet a housing need. In this country, the housing need is the affordable housing. Apartments, all they do is take away the American dream of home ownership. People, the amount people pay to rent apartments anymore, you're not going to save up anything because you're having to pay somebody else's for it. The church, if they're really, church is supposed to be for the people. If the church really wants to, why don't they find a way to have affordable housing? I know what construction costs are, so they could put something in there and then make it so people could be able to afford to buy homes and have homes. With the high school, though, I'm going to speak from experience, from what I've done for most of my career. You got a high school right there. The majority of people coming to the high school is a lot of very young drivers. Most of the times you look at a high school parking lot, there's more kids driving cars than teachers and everything else. So you're going to have a lot of drivers going back and forth. an apartment complex right across from there. Historically, most people or younger families that have apartments, live in apartments, have younger kids. And apartments like that there's not a lot of room to play. And where do they end up playing? At the school grounds. And I don't care if they're fenced or not, they start having property damage. You start kids doing things they shouldn't be doing on the school grounds, where they're in, next thing you know, the police are tied up having to go out to it. And like I say, I'm speaking from experience on that type of stuff. It's not a good fit for it. I think even the Planning and Zoning Commission, who seems to approve almost everything, even they were kind of split on this, that this is not a good place for it. I think that the church really and truthfully should find a way to consider it, that maybe to find a more affordable housing way to try to help people, not just see how much money you can make on it. So, thank you. Merry Christmas. And if you get a chance, come by and bring your grandkids by. My light show is going, so.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. That's it on the public comment. Rebuttal.
Thank you, Mayor Jacobson, council members. Again, Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering. P&Z was split on it, and the reason they were split was primarily because of the letter from the police department, which had to do with traffic and transportation and the intersection improvements. Mr. Flowers talked about traffic. I'm going to read a couple of things out of the staff report. The requested zoning is in conformance with land use assumptions in the city's sanitary sewer master plan. The requested zoning is in conformance with anticipated land uses and trip generations within the city's transportation master plan. The zone change is not anticipated to have any negative impacts to the city's transportation network that are not previously identified as being mitigated through the collection of traffic impact fees. My point is this kind of intense use has been anticipated in the city's master plans. So the question, why not R2? Well, I think Hayden actually addressed that. R2 is not the highest and the best use for the property. And just because if it were to develop as R2, doesn't mean you're going to get affordable housing. That's a tough thing to do these days, is to develop affordable housing with land prices the way they are and construction costs the way they are. So just because it would get approved at R2 doesn't really mean anything. The highest and best use for the property, in our opinion, is R3. We do feel it's in conformance with the city's master plans, and we do feel that it meets the zone change criteria. So, any further questions for me?
See none.
Thank you.
I'll close the public hearing. I'm not going to get to vote tonight. So let me make a couple comments.
Somebody abstains.
Yeah, let me make a couple comments.
Let me think about that.
The comment was made, that more rooftops are going to will help support commercial property, commercial growth along Highway 41. I've been involved with the city for 30 years, and I've been hearing we need more rooftops. We need more rooftops to support the business. If you look at the number of rooftops we've added, both residential, single-family, and multifamily, we got a ton of rooftops. And I've not seen all the businesses just bursting at the seam because of that. So I know that's a belief. There's probably some merit to it, but I've seen a significant increase in the number of rooftops without what I would have expected the comparable increase in commercial and industrial businesses. Mr. Anderl talked about supply and demand. I agree 100% with you. I've referenced supply and demand in comments that I have made and been told that I'm making a threat. It doesn't work that way. Supply and demand is an economic theory that is true. If there is not a supply and the demand is there, the prices are going to continue to go up. My concern is if we try to create affordable housing, we hear people say we want our kids to come back, we want our kids to come be able to afford a house. I don't know if building more and more apartments is the answer to that. That's going to attract more and more people here because there are now apartments available looking to buy the house, which may actually create more competition for the kids trying to come back and purchase their first home. Highest and best use. That's a tough one too, because for me, because you can look at pretty much any vacant piece of property, and if density and housing opportunities is the goal, then any parcel in the city, highest and best use, could be multifamily. So I have an issue with that. I appreciate what the church is wanting to do. I think that's wonderful. I go to a church where a similar thing has happened. They sold a house they owned, they sold vacant lots that they owned, but they were all residential and for the same purpose in which the pastor spoke. So I applaud you for wanting to expand the church and add to your facilities. Personally, though, from my perspective, when I look at all the other houses there, the amount of traffic, even though they say that we could put a roundabout in, et cetera, I've got real concerns with multifamily. To be frank, I was surprised that R2 was suggested. That might be a good alternative. And you're right, it may not assure that residential homes for purchase or for sale are built. I think that might be another option that could be considered. So I just wanted to share my thoughts before I open it up to council. Who'd like to start?
Mayor, if I might for a second, I would take a second and remind there's a lot of folks here that don't typically come. Get a sense of how we make decisions as we consider land use decisions. We have to adopt this. State code requires that we adopt a number of criteria, and we apply those criteria as people come in. And as you all know, because we talk about this, the only thing that we get to consider is the criteria that we've adopted and the evidence that comes in during the hearing process. So I would encourage, as you're focusing in on your deliberation tonight, to think and focus in your discussion on those adopted criteria and think how what we've heard in the evidence tonight fits those criteria. That will help us craft a decision and be able to bring it back to you. Briefly, as a recap, those are amendments to the zoning map should be in accordance with the comprehensive plan, should be being both the land use map and the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Zoning is assigned following consideration of items such as street classification, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, geographic or natural features. And then the last one that's relevant for us tonight, based on the use, is commercial and high density is typically assigned along streets with higher road classification. So as you're deliberating, if you can tie your thoughts back to one of those criteria, that will help us focus in as we're drafting our reasoned decision.
Mr. Malloy.
For me, it's, I think the zone the way it is now is fine. I think the current map is fine. And I don't think adding R3 or changing anything to R3 adds value to the map as it exists. One thing that was brought up is that R3 is a buffer to commercial areas. The existing commercial areas now are storage units, and which are probably lower intensity than what is being proposed as a buffer. So I don't think it fits there. One of these things is not like the other. All surrounding plots are 1- and 2-story homes, single-story storage units, 2-story high school. So 3-story walk-in apartments doesn't fit the flow of the area that's there now. Traffic, I know that the improvements are coming to that intersection. They were planned to come to the intersection before this was proposed because the traffic there is already so bad. I'm not an engineer, so I can't say that the improvements would be, inadequate for what's there already, plus R3 development. But it's been strained prior to this proposal. But mostly, I just don't think it fits. I think the map's fine the way it is. I think the commercial that's there now is lower intensity than what's being proposed. I think what's allowed in limited commercial, which is the zone that's there now, is lower intensity than what's proposed. And so I think we just leave it like it is.
Mr. Wolf.
Well, I guess to Warren's point, I would point to zone change criteria, letter B. And when we look at whether amendments to the zoning map in accordance with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan, right in the front page, first thing on the comprehensive plan is to maintain the small town feel for Post Falls. And in agreement with what the mayor and Councilor Malloy has said, I don't know that this pushes that goal forward. I think if anything, it pushes the goal back. We heard a lot about highest and best use, but I always question myself, a highest and best use for who? Just the landowner or the other 37,000 people that live in Post Falls. This property obviously hasn't been marketed as LC, so I can't really say that it is the highest and best use, or that that's the top dollar they can get out of it. I think it's still developable as LC. The question I asked was our inventory and the balance. We've worked really hard for the last several years to try to maintain a balance within our community of R1, R3, commercial, LC, CCS, whatever it might be. And I don't see a real compelling reason to flip the script now and change that. So I would not be in favor of the zone change myself.
Gary?
This is a real conundrum in many ways. What I do like is a development agreement, no certificates of occupancy until the roundabout signal work is completed. That was a big thing for me, the traffic mitigation there. And I believe Mr. Andrel said that the developer plans on keeping the property and hiring a management company to do it. So that's great news, that is not something that somebody from another country or county or state would own. One of the challenges I have with the R3 is the height. Is it 45 feet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 3 stories? When you look at the map, there are single-family homes right there. And then you have a 3-story apartment building looking right down in their backyards. And that has happened here in Post Falls. And I would not like to be the single-family homeowner that has a 3-story apartment right next to me. It's absolutely something that, you know, when you talk about future land use, I don't know if the future is now. And I would have difficulty, it would be very difficult for me to vote in favor of the R3 for that piece of property.
Thank you. Lynn?
Well, I have the same concern for the 3-story or the 45-foot height limitation, and as Carrie alluded to, we did have recently a problem with that over on 2nd Street in Post Falls in this last year. So that height limitation is my biggest concern with this whole thing. And I think R2, if you talk about the affordable housing, would fit better in that area and keep the height limitation down, where it would be more amenable to those folks that live in that single-family dwelling unit. So I struggle with supporting R3.
Thank you. Linda?
I don't really think it matters what I think.
Sure
It
does.
does.
Do you want to add any comments, or are you
No,
okay?
thank you.
Entertain a motion.
Go ahead.
I would move to deny the zone change RZNE 0009-2021.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item up tonight is unfinished business, returning ordinances and resolutions, and there are many. First is the ordinance, Build Right Home Zone Change.
Are you waiting for me? Is this me? Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry. I was just gonna wait until they.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
That'd
probably
be
good.
too.
Okay, I would move to place the ordinance, Build Right Home Zone Change, RZNE-0008-2021, on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for a change in zoning classification for the lands described in Section 1 of this ordinance from industrial to medium-density R2 zoning, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map to reflect this change, providing that all prior zones applicable to the lands described in Section 1 are hereby superseded, and providing an effective date.
So this is where I say move to approve the ordinance, Build Right Home Zone Change RZNE-0008-2021, and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next ordinance is the smock vacation.
I move to place the ordinance Smog Vacation VACA-0001-2021 on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for the vacation of rights-of-way situated in the north-south alley in Block 6, the east-west alley in Block 6, and a portion of 6th Street adjoining the southerly line of Block 6 of the plat of Shanks Boyd Edition according to the plat thereof recorded in Book B of Plats, page 62, Records of Kootenai County, Idaho, located in the northwest quarter of Section 3, Township 50 North, Range 5 West, Boise Meridian, as described herein, providing for the disposition of the vacated right-of-way, providing repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing severability, providing an effective date, and providing for other matters properly relating thereto.
I move to approve the ordinance Smock Vacation BACA-0001-2021 and direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Motion passes. Next ordinance, Tullamore 9th zone change.
Move to place the ordinance Tullamore 9th Zone Change RZNE-0005-2021 on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Roll call.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for a change in zoning classification for the land described in Section 1 of this ordinance from Community Commercial Services, CCS, to Community Commercial Mixed, CCM, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map to reflect this change, providing that all prior zones applicable to lands described in Section 1 are hereby superseded, and providing an effective date.
Move to approve the ordinance Tullamore 9th Zone Change RZNE-0005-2021 and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is the Quiet Ridge annexation.
Move to place the ordinance Quiet Ridge Annexation, Fair Property, on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, annexing property consisting of approximately 7.50 acres located in the northeast quarter of Section 28, Township 51 North, Range 5 West, Boise Meridian, Kootenai County, Idaho, and zoning the annexed property single-family residential R1, providing for amendment of the official zoning map and providing for an effective date hereof.
Move to approve the ordinance Quiet Ridge Annexation Fair Property and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have a resolution.
I move to approve the update to the fiscal year 2022 fee resolution.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Next resolution?
I move to approve the adoption of the Collection System Master Plan Amendments and Implementation Policy.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Motion passes. And the final resolution.
I move to approve the Facilities Needs Assessment.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Back to ordinances.
I move to place the ordinance Juvenile Code Update on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, Kootenai County, and Municipal Corporation of the State of Idaho, providing for amendment to Post Falls Municipal Code Sections 9.28.060 and 9.28.070, providing that the remaining sections of Post Falls City Code shall remain in effect, providing for survival of actions for violations of prior ordinances, providing for severability, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.
I move to approve the ordinance Juvenile Code Update and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next ordinance, Greens Ferry Glen.
I move to place the ordinance Greens Ferry Glen Annexation ANNX-0001-2021 on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, Municipal Corporation of the State of Idaho, annexing property consisting of approximately 10.825 acres within the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 35, Township 51 North, Range 5 West, together with the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 35 and the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 36, Township 51 North, Range 5 West, Boise Meridian, Kootenai County, providing for amendment of the official zoning map and providing for an effective date hereof.
I move to approve the ordinance Greens Ferry Glen Annexation ANNX-0001-2021 and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye. Motion passes. And the final ordinance.
We ready?
One more, yeah.
Okay, let's see. I move to place the ordinance Pleasant View West and North Annexation ANNX-0006-2020 and ANNX-0008-2021 on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Wilson.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, annexing approximately 625.99 acres located in that portion of the southwest quarter and the northwest quarter of Section 29, the southeast quarter and the northeast quarter of Section 30, the southeast quarter and the northeast quarter of Section 31, and the southwest quarter and the northwest quarter of Section 32, all in Township 51 North, Range 5 West, Boise Meridian, Kootenai County, Idaho. Parcel 1, that portion of Section 20, and the northwest quarter of Section 29, and the northeast quarter of Section 30. Parcel 2, a portion of the southwest quarter of Section 29, Township 51 North, Range 5 West. Parcel 3, a portion of the north half of the northwest quarter of Section 32, Township 51 North, Range 5 West, Boise Meridian, Kootenai County, Idaho, and zoning the annexed property industrial, community commercial services, community commercial mixed, residential mixed, and public service. That should be public reserve, providing for amendment of the official zoning map and providing for an effective date hereof.
I move to approve the ordinance Pleasant View West and North Annexation, ANNX-0006-2020 and ANNX-0008-2021, and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Orders.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda tonight is new business, and we have 3 items. Water reclamation facility upgrade.
That was very stressful.
You did good.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Andrew Arbini, Projects Division Manager, Public Works. Still getting used to that. So tonight's presentation is an amendment with JUB engineers for the water reclamation facility tertiary treatment project. This is for programming and SCADA for the new project. So I put together some slides, give a little bit of background on the timing and the what. Essentially what is the programming and SCADA and how it pertains to the project. So brief overview, this amendment tonight includes the automation and controls programming. So this is an amendment with JUB engineers and their subconsultant H2E to provide those services. So JUB, along with their subconsultant AEI, which is the electrical engineer, will provide the coordination and oversight with H2E. This is a familiar slide, but I think it provides a good starting point when we're talking about this project. Brief recap. This project, 4 main goals that we've identified. This is satisfying the NPDES permit compliance. So along with that, we have our compliance schedule that we're currently following. This project addresses some increased capacity needs. So we've included that. And along with that, that allows us to maximize our long-term return on investment. And then also, along with that, avoiding duplicate future upgrades as we move forward. What is SCADA? I actually had to look this up to make sure I was defining this correctly. So supervisory control and data acquisition. The screenshot is actually something that I took just the other day. This is our actual facility. I know it's hard to see, but I think the main point is there with the shapes and colors. This represents the existing facility, and this is essentially what our operations staff relies on and is integral to their daily operations, operation of our facility, and then we also have a separate portal for the collection side. So this is strictly just the reclamation facility, and this conveys information like flow rates. You can see which pieces of equipment are running or not running. It'll send alarms, levels in tanks. So very vital information. Worth noting, the new tertiary project will add probably another third to this map. So it'll expand out with those new facilities. The scope that's included in this amendment can really be broken into 2 parts. As I mentioned, it provides the programming and support services for the new tertiary project. But what's also been included is reprogramming the existing PLCs in the existing side of the plant. That will allow the plant to be uniform as we make these new improvements and allows the whole system, the whole facility to communicate through one system. To the left is kind of a breakdown of the tree. I think we've included this in other past project presentations. Kind of gives a overview of our contracts that the city currently has as part of this project. So you can see the engineer, which would be JUB, the city's design consultant, and then the SCADA programming in red, that would be H2E, and then you have the electrical engineer, which is AEI. So between those 3, that will be the key piece that will provide the programming services. We added this slide to provide a little bit of background, so I'm going to take a minute or two to go through this. So the question being, why now? Why do we have this amendment coming at this time? Historically, on our utilities projects, the city has included the programming up front. So either through the design at the time of construction, or it's the contractor's responsibility. The tertiary project is vastly different, a lot more complex. And at the time of bidding and contract award, simply put, we did not have all the information needed in order to seek a programming contract or seek a contract with a programming firm. Because this project is a 2-year project, we were able to work on those final details as we started construction. So moving forward with construction allowed us to prioritize the project, keeping with the permit requirement schedule, while we worked through the final details of the programming. So at this point, we have now compiled a scope, and that is what's included in tonight's amendment. So that was one key point. The other part to why we took this approach is that historically we've also worked with a one-person consulting firm, and that has provided a great value to the city, but it's also been challenging in being able to schedule those services and work with a contractor and their subcontractors and suppliers and vendors. So we knew going into this that we wanted to, that was a concern that we had, and we wanted to have that addressed, that we were looking for a firm that could provide those services to match with a contractor. So included in the construction management services with JUB, we included a scope for JUB to develop a request for proposals or a controls narrative that would provide enough information for these programming firms to submit on. And then through that process, the city was involved and provided the input. For instance, our consideration for a larger firm and meeting that level of service. So I mentioned previously kind of dividing the SCADA and programming services into 2 separate parts. Broke it down into a percentage. 82% for would represent the amount of programming and control out of the scope that's in the amendment tonight. That would be for the new project, and then 18% would be for the existing facility. And to give a quick rundown of what's included in that on the new project side, that includes a new operator interface development, a new platform, if you will. So that previous screenshot that I showed you with the green background and what the operators rely on, that would be changing as part of the scope. And that's changing for several reasons. One is industry standard, one of the main drivers. Includes PLC programming. The PLC is essentially the brain, nerve center for each piece of equipment. For example, a pump, you can program that to turn on at a certain set point and then turn off. Includes remote access for operations staff. They can get in and access that same platform anywhere. And then it includes system redundancy, which is currently lacking in our system. On the existing facility side, those services would include reprogramming the PLCs to match what we're doing with the new plant. So I have 2 financial slides. This is the first one. This has the most numbers on it. So we'll go through this, give a brief update on where we are with our contract with JUB. So the current CMS contract total is about $3.7 million. Management reserve, which is included in that 3.7, is $120,000. The city authorized almost $53,000 with JUB to develop the RFP, that controls narrative, and also included H2E to come in and study our system. So the majority of that cost was for H2E to learn how our existing system operates and communicates, and then that information fed into the development of the scope. So the amendment this evening is for a total of $898,200. Staff is requesting a contingency amount of $44,910. So that total at the bottom, $943,110. Oops. Go back. Went the wrong way. So the total request this evening is for $943,110. And then the bottom number in the table that's underlined, that is the updated contract value with JUB for $4.6 million. So part two, this provides more of a breakdown of where the money is coming from and provide a little more context. So at the time of contract award, when we started construction, total project cost was estimated about $45.8 million. That includes a $2 million contingency. That contingency includes all of the city's contracts related to the project. So JUB, engineering services, special inspections. So that total $2 million is accounted for in all of those project-related contracts. Including the SCADA upgrade amendment this evening, that revised project budget would go to $46.7 million. So the third point that I want to touch on, and most importantly, the additional funding source that staff is proposing. In financial year 21, the city saw an increase in capacity fees that were received. So it exceeded budget expectations. They exceeded budgeted amount in excess of $1.5 million. So staff would propose utilizing that excess, a portion of that, to fund this amendment. Doing so, it allows us to increase the project budget without impacting the long-term finances. Final slide, just giving a quick update on where we are. So we presented a project update a few weeks ago and made mention of a couple of these items. The first one, a potential alternate electrical design. We will likely see a proposal from the contractor, anticipate early 2022, that we would be bringing to council for consideration. Second issue are ongoing supply chain and market condition issues, and that has some time impacts to the project currently. That is ongoing, and I also anticipate at some point we will have something that we will be bringing to council. And then the final point, we have been on about a 6-month rotation for project updates. So we anticipate spring 2022 giving another project update. That concludes my presentation. I stand for any questions.
Question for Andrew.
Andrew, this isn't a surprise, right? We knew this all along, that we were going to wait and get this bid later on. So just in your opinion, are we way off? I mean, this $1 million price tag for this, did you anticipate that it was going to be that much, or?
We did not. This was more than what we anticipated, and the main reason for that is we really didn't have enough information to have a solid estimate in the beginning. I think as we continued to move through and finalizing the pieces that we needed to inform the programming contract, that started to really put things into perspective. As we brought in a programming firm as well, and looking at our existing system, that also brought things to our attention, things that we were aware of, things that we weren't aware of, and that really brought everything into scope. So to answer your question, this was more than what we had thought, but the initial estimates were very rough estimates and lacked a lot of that necessary input that we needed, that we have essentially gained by waiting that time and getting more information.
And we need to do this. The system won't work without the programming, correct?
The new project requires controls and programming. Going back to that slide, I had 82% for the new portion and 18. The new tertiary treatment improvements does require the programming. in reviewing the additional scope for reprogramming the existing facility, it made sense to capitalize on doing that work now instead of a future project that would be done at a future date. This allows us to capture the work that H2E has already put into understanding our system and combines those two together. So to answer your question, yes, the tertiary treatment project does require the programming automation.
Last question, I think, is, if I understood the presentation, we do have $1.5 million in excess fees that we didn't necessarily anticipate, and that would, in essence, cover this cost.
Correct. A portion.
Don't have to dip into our savings account or someplace else to, don't have to take it away from someplace else to pay this.
I'm stepping a little bit outside my wheelhouse, but as I understand it, the where this came from, the cap fees were estimated. So there's an estimated amount, and the revenues received in financial year 21 were exceeded by more than $1.5 million.
That's correct.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Any other questions? So you need a motion?
I'd move to approve the water reclamation facility upgrade, SCADA upgrade agreement.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Andrew. Item B is resolution on social media policy.
So I'm happy to present this in whatever detail you would like. It's a kind of a dense document. If it might be easier just to answer your questions. The idea here is we maintain multiple social media accounts. The purpose of this policy is really to update our rules for the management of those sites and for essentially to regulate content and how people behave while they're interacting with our social media sites. This policy is based on a model that's drafted by the International Municipal Lawyers Association, which is the national trade association for city attorneys. They've done a lot of research in trying to figure out, based on case law, what's happening across the country, where court decisions are coming down, how best to manage our social media presence. Again, there's a ton of information in this. It's 10 pages of fairly dense stuff. So I don't really want to walk you through it, but if you have questions about any section, I'm happy to wade in or
It was
answer your
available
questions.
to us, so I don't think we need to go page by page. Carrie?
I did read all 10 pages of it. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
But I had a couple of questions. It's very clear on who manages and who can provide content. But then when you get into the officials, which would be us, elected people, as opposed to employees, although I think we are somewhat considered employees, about posting or answering questions. I'm thinking about the last election cycle, and some of our council members did an excellent job responding to people. And I wasn't sure where that is. Now, they were not on an official City of Post Falls platform, but speaking about processes, procedures, how we do things. I don't know, what is the legal thing about how would you monitor people such as elected officials?
So this really only speaks to the city's internet presence or social media presence. Every individual has the ability to have their own social media accounts, and this doesn't really speak to that. This is more managing and the city's social media presence. So if an elected official, an appointed official wants to have their own site, they're certainly free to do that. There are some hazards that you can potentially run into. One being, and there's been litigation on this across the country, if you are using a social media account as your sort of official mouthpiece, your official representation, you may have transformed that site into a public social media presence that you don't have the ability to throw trolls off. It's something to be aware of. So a former president ran into that. We've seen some city council members in other parts of the country where they were using social media presence to speak in an official capacity. They were attracting some trolls. The trolls would get blocked, and then they would file suit saying, wait a minute, you've turned this into an official communication network. You can't remove me. I have a free speech right to be present here. So that's my extra 2 cents there. Be careful how you use your private settings, but this really is only aimed at the public's, at the
And
city's
so not
presence.
any city employee, elected, appointed, or otherwise, what they do on their private social media is not something that you can, not necessarily you, but Shelley being in charge of herding all the cats, that is not something that the city could say, you're behaving inappropriately.
So potentially, we have, in our personnel rule, we have rules governing how employees use social media. You could potentially, as an employee, do something that puts your employment at the city in jeopardy. Probably not so much for elected officials. We don't really get to regulate
We just run wild.
how that all
yes.
works.
But if one of us decides to go off on a tangent or on a rampage and start posting as if we're speaking for the city,
That's true.
that can cause an issue.
It certainly can.
So, you know, my feeling is if it's going to be a city's social media, that information ought to come from the city and from the people that control it. Again, your personal, I would echo what Mr. Wilson says, is you got to be a little bit careful just because you don't have the ability to stop people's comments. But I would also say that if you're going to use your personal social media, I would ask, maybe suggest, you do so in a fashion that does not indicate that it is the official position of the city, because that could cause some issues.
And I think that's fair. I mean, we try to speak with one voice to the extent that we can. If people have individual opinions, if you pose that as, this is my opinion, it doesn't necessarily reflect the opinion of the city of Post Falls, I think you're perfectly fine.
Any other questions for Warren? Now, it says resolution. Do you have to bring us a resolution back, or is there a
I
resolution?
think this resolution is actually here. It's
In here?
Yeah, it's in here. Okay.
It's in the packet.
So we need a motion for approval of the
Yes.
resolution.
So
I'd move to approve the social media policy resolution.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wolf,
Aye.
Thorson,
aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And the final item under new business is the 2021 personnel policy changes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Teresa Benner, HR Director. I don't get to come up before you very often, but this evening I do have some new policy changes. I am not known for my PowerPoint presentations, and you're not going to get one tonight. But so I am hoping that everybody's had an opportunity to read through the policies that were sent. Mostly housekeeping items. And I provided you with a memorandum kind of detailing what those items were. There were a couple of discrepancies once this was sent out, and one of them is the section 705, and I would ask that we're going to strike that because it was not changed in the policy. We are going to go ahead and keep the 120 hours that we had previously had in the policy. And then on page 2, there was a discrepancy in the policy talking about the requesting the changes to be amended on the comp balances if they're exceeding 60 hours. And so I think in the policy itself, it talks about the policy and how the time is going to be taken out first out of your comp bank, and what we are asking is that you would approve the ability to only do that if they've reached a 60-hour limit. So those are the two discrepancies. We have a lot of other policies here. Does anybody have any questions
Anybody have
regarding
questions on the
those?
changes made in the policy? See none?
Going to make this very easy for me then.
Thank
We
you,
do
Teresa.
have a resolution.
We have the resolution. I want to make sure that we're able to capture those changes in a motion. So could you help me again so I
Oh, I'm
capture
sorry.
what you've changed?
Okay.
You know what I'm gonna do, so.
Yeah.
So, let me see. Let me go to the policy itself. And that's in Section 8. And so what I'd like to do is strike on page 4 of the pages that I sent. Strike comp time, if available, must be used first when requesting time off, and replace that with if the employer's comp time balance exceeds 60 hours, the comp time must be used first when requesting time off until the balance is equal to or less than 60 hours.
You okay, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I'm just not finding it really quick.
I can give you a copy.
That would help.
So we can reference those in the motion and you'll make sure it's cleaned up?
Yeah, that was the first one. Is there a second one?
Not really,
all the
because
same.
the Section 705,
Okay,
I'm just choosing
perfect.
to strike that.
Mr. Malloy, you gonna live on the edge?
I would move to approve the 2021 personal policy changes with the amendments as presented.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Wilhelm,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you.
Thank you, and I would just like to take a moment to thank all of you for the service that you've provided for the city all these years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item up is citizens' issues, section of the agenda reserved for citizens wishing to address council regarding a city-related issue that is not on the agenda.
Somebody have an alarm going off over there?
Yeah, we do. Bob, come on up.
What is the,
Sounds like mine.
it's not me, I'm on
There's an
airport.
alarm going off.
I'm on airplane mode.
I hear something going.
I don't know.
I think
Sounds
it
like
is.
it's coming from that room, yeah.
Oh, it's in a pocket.
Thanks, Joe.
Bob Flowers. Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, Council. Well, after everything that's gone on tonight, I feel this is kind of petty, but this has been a complaint of mine for, well, this is going on 3 years. I've talked to the police department time and time again about snow removal from this one particular apartment complex. They continuously shove all their snow from their parking lot right out into the street. And they've started it again this year. There's already a pile a couple foot deep and with no more snow than what we've had already. This apartment complex is on 2nd and Ridgewood. You can tell it's there. And I would like the council to instruct the police department to enforce our rules. I mean, we're supposed to be following the rules, and I would like to see them actually enforced. I mean, this is the 3rd year, and that pile keeps getting bigger and bigger every winter till your plows can't get through it, and it gets ridiculous. I go down Ridgewood every single day, and I'm just asking you to please put a stop to it. That's it.
Thank you. Cameron, you got that information? Great, appreciate it. Mike? Still going off.
She kind of beat me to it. Mike Pellicero again for the record. She kind of beat me to it. Just as a resident, I've read some of the things you guys have to read all year long and everything else, and obviously takes a lot of time and everything. And it's the last meeting of the year, so just as a resident, I'd like to thank you guys for your service. I'm sure it takes a lot of your own time and everything, so it is appreciated. Decisions to agree with or not agree with, but I do appreciate as a resident everything you guys do, and Andrew working with him this year. The job he did for our association and stuff like that, working with us to try and make everything work great. And the city guys last night, 2 o'clock in the morning out trying to plow our streets and keep them clean. So just as a resident, just thank you to, all the staff and to you guys for your service.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Next item up, administrative staff reports.
I don't really have a staff report, but did you want to mention the loss of our urban renewal commissioner in your comments?
Oh, yes. I believe you all heard Larry Carsonson, after many years on urban renewal, had decided not to ask for reappointment and then passed away. My understanding was suddenly last week. So, as you recall, we did have a replacement that was confirmed, but Larry contributed a lot to the city, a lot of his time, a lot of his expertise, and our sympathy is with his family and his friends. So thank you very much. I appreciate that reminder. Next up would be mayor and council comments. And I would just like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. It's been an interesting year. It's been an interesting 2 years. We've got change forthcoming, and I want Council President Wilhelm, Councilor Wolf to know how much I appreciate all 8 years with you. Linda, I don't know, 13, 14 years? The service. I want you to know how much I appreciate your counsel, your input, your advice, your expertise. We're always hopeful, always optimistic. Change will be good, but I want you to know that I personally will feel your loss, and can't tell you how much I appreciate all you've done for us, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone, Merry Christmas. Be safe. If you're traveling, get there safely, get home safely. Happy New Year, and we'll see everybody the first meeting of January. 4th, yep. Council comments. I'll go ahead.
Well, I wanted to take a minute to thank the council. It's been an honor to serve with everyone here. I've appreciated your leadership, your knowledge, and your passion for our city, and I've learned a lot from all of you over the years. I'd also like to thank the staff. Your dedication, your enthusiasm, and service to our city is awesome, and it's always made our job pretty easy up here. And lastly, I'd like to thank the citizens of Post Falls who have allowed me to represent them for the last 8 years. It's been an awesome opportunity for me, and I've always appreciated all the support from the city and the citizens here. And along with the mayor, I would echo happy holidays to everyone. Thank you so much.
Carrie.
Well, I'm going to miss you right here, and Linda all the way at the other end, and Steve. Yeah, we had a deep bench, a really deep bench, and you will be missed, all of you. I would also like to thank Mr. Politero, Howard Burns, and Bob Flowers, 2 people or 3 people who regularly are committed to participating in what we do up here. Because any time that this room is full is actually a good thing, because it means that the community is engaged. So I would encourage you to continue your engagement. It is appreciated. We do hear you, and we do listen. So Merry Christmas.
Anyone else? We do need an executive.
Oh. Well. Let's see. I would move to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061C to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency, and anticipate that it would be less than 10 minutes.
Yes.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll enter executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Ruling with the iron fist.